Welcome everyone to our 4th annual history conference and our lunchtime panel where we celebrate FRCC's 50th anniversary. We're very excited to have you here today. I'm Cecilia Gowdy-Wygant. I've been teaching history and women's studies here at Front Range. This is the end of my 11th academic year, and I feel like still a newbie compared to this illustrious panel that we have today. And I'm really excited for you to get to hear a little bit more about the wonderful history of our campus and of our college. And so it's my pleasure to introduce to you the Vice President of Westminster Campus and Brighton Center, Cathy Pellish. But before I do, I almost forgot, I apologize. I want to extend out some words of thanks to the foundation and Ryan McCoy for providing this wonderful lunch for us. Can we give them a round of applause? Thank you so much for all of your contribution and for your assistance with this luncheon today. So I'm going to turn it over to Cathy. Welcome.
Thank you all, and I just want to extend another thank you to all of the students here. Cecilia, remind me, 5th? What number are we on? This is our 4th. It grows every time, and it feels so good for me to walk into the library and feel the buzz and see all the students and see all the activity and see all the interaction going on between faculty and students and all of the great presentations and the work that you've done. So thanks everyone for being here. And now on to our illustrious, that's a great word, panel. So I'm just going to moderate questions, and we're going to keep this, I think, informal. And as Cecilia said, we're really launching this because we are celebrating 50 years of great higher education in this Westminster community. And a lot of these 4 have all played a role someplace in that timeline. So we're going to hear from them and hear some stories and open it up. So I'm going to ask each of you really just to introduce yourselves. So name, title, and several of you have probably had several titles here, so pick one or give us all of them. Give us a timeline when you were here at this campus, and if you're a student, and I know we have one former student, what did you study? And for all of you, staff, just a brief intro on what you did. And I'll start with you, Mark.
Okay, my name is Mark Boyko. I started here, 1971. Actually, I graduated from Metro State on a Sunday and came to work here Monday. So I felt very fortunate to have a job, and I stayed for 30 years. I retired in 2003, something like that. Retirement is good. The college has always been important to me and an essential part of my life. So, go ahead.
Well, I'm Phyllis Abt, and my first title at, it was Larimer County Voc Tech then. I actually started before we were a part of Front Range Community College, and the Voc Tech was operated by the 3 school districts in Larimer County, and we offered only career and technical programs. And then in '88, we became a part of Front Range Community College. I actually worked on this campus for 3 years, but my total years at Front Range was 34. And I had 15 different job titles, but most of the time it was working with career and technical programs. So,
thank you.
And I'm Teri. Sorry. I'm Teri Sanchez. I started my love affair with Front Range Community College in 1972 as a very excited student. And I took all of my psychology classes under Dave Amick. I loved the college, even though we were in barracks. At the time, we didn't have a really beautiful college like we do now, but it was a thrill. It was a thrill to know that I had embarked on my career of being a teacher. And so I studied early childhood education and elementary education, but I really focused more on psychology and behavioral science, and I'm really not sure how that happened. But in the end, it really turned out to be the best formula for me, because when I did graduate, finally, about 40 years later at Metro State University with a behavioral science degree, And that really prepared me to be able to do the work that I do today. I work with small businesses through the Small Business Development Center, which is hosted by Front Range Community College on the east end of the campus. So if you're starting a small business, come and see us. We help small businesses. And I'm also a business instructor now on the Westminster Campus and the Brighton Center. So I've gone full circle from student to business owner to educator, and back to educator again, and I'm really, really thrilled to be here this morning, so thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Gonzales. It's been 14 years since I've set foot in this building, and was the president of the college, Front Range Community College, for, 14 years? I retired in 2004. But a little bit about the college then, as I recall. I was the campus vice president at Community College of Denver in the 70s, late 70s. So I would be out here a lot for meetings and all that. Mark Boyko was here then, Sherry was here then, who later became my assistant when I came here from Seattle. And I recall a discussion where John Swenson was the vice president then, and we are all kind of did our thing for each campus. You take pride in your campus and all that. And this building was not here then, but the facility housed a large solar panel system, and it really was very linear. In my view, it didn't have much design. It lacked, some of those kinds of things that you would see as a beautiful facility. And I mistakenly one day in a meeting, I was just kidding. John Swenson, to this day, will never forgive me for this. But I said, John, this looks like a milk barn. I said, come on, you got cows out here. There was, remember, the open area? And there were livestock out here. And I said, well, he got upset with me. So every meeting after that, he kept, nipping me in the side, saying, well, don't forget that. But we had a lot of camaraderie in those days. The Community College of Denver was a system in itself. We had 3 campuses, Red Rocks, CCD downtown, and then this campus was north. I left the CCD campus and took a presidency in Oregon for about 9 years. And then following that, I was chancellor of the Seattle system in Seattle, Washington. And just happened to host the national conference for community colleges in Seattle, and got word that Front Range was looking for a president. And all of a sudden, people that I knew said, you better come and take a look at this place. And I said, well, Front Range is the only place I would come back to in Colorado for a college position, i.e., because I knew at that time that this was the growth place. And you are seeing that today. I did a lot of research, on analysis of the faculty, the communities. I spent a lot of time trying to find out, what this place could be. And sure enough, it's turned out to be that. So, short story, during my tenure, it was a very growth period with a lot of activity, a lot of development in various communities, which you now see. Fort Collins had already been started as a community college, but we knew that was going to also escalate and grow into the size that it is today. So that's a short story, but good to be back.
Thank you. So just for the benefit of the audience, so we did start in 1968, and I think you've heard a little bit of this here from Phyllis and Tom especially, that was just, we were actually Community College of Denver North at the time. And we were housed, what was your word, barracks? Somebody said, oh, that was Teri, who went to school in those barracks. And then did turn into, what we are now is 3 major campuses. And we are the largest community college in a system of 13 colleges. So Tom's comment about growth was true under your tenure and other different and significant time periods as well. So I'm going to kind of build off of that, and I'm just going to jump around a little bit, and I'll start with you, Teri. So when you think back to then and now, and having your experience now on the campus, talk to us about just the physical campus and changes or observations that you have, and then others, if you can also think back to your time, we'll kind of pick up on that.
Well, I remember when I first went to the college and it was CCD North, I thought, well, where's the college? Because there was just a row of modulars. They call them modulars today, but back then they called them barracks because they actually came from Lowry Air Force Base. And it was like, well, where's the college? And everybody said, well, it's right in there in those buildings. And I walked in and I was like, whoa. I was expecting something like CU or UNC, some big college. And here's this little place, but it was so incredible walking in there. Oh, and by the way, we didn't have a parking lot either. You parked on the street. And there were like greenhouses on the other side and industrial units on the other side. And so it was kind of in this very industrial area of Denver. And you walk inside, but the atmosphere totally changed when you went inside because you knew you were at college. And when you're only in your 20s and you're starting to go to college, you're like, wow, I'm in college. And you'd go back and you'd tell everybody, I'm in college. And I actually got to go to college because I worked for Head Start. I had a position with a corporation that paid me a lot of money as an administrative assistant. And I actually left that job to go work at Head Start because I knew the philosophy of Head Start was to educate their staff so that they could train parents to be educators of their children and to promote education in the family. And Head Start was actually paying for my classes. So I just took whatever classes I could find. I didn't even have an advisor. They just said, go in there and take this class. So I went in, and like I said, my first 3 classes were psychology. And then a little bit midpoint, they started the CDA certificate program for early childhood education, which was a child development associate certificate. And I was one of the first people to accomplish that. And then I felt like, wow, I'm really doing good here. So that was still here. They had just made the child care center, and we were like, wow, look at this place. This is so cool. Wouldn't it be cool if we could have our Head Start program here? And we learned a lot of hands-on activities to do with kids, but we also had classroom instruction at the same time. And we had that one-on-one mentoring from the teachers who were in the program. So the really beautiful thing about Front Range Community College when I was going to school, and it still is that the classes were small, the teachers were very attentive to us, they really cared about us. They wanted us to be successful. And I'm one of those, overachievers. I had to have that 4.0 average. I had to be the first one to finish because I was also the second kid born in my family, and I always wanted to be better than my sisters and brothers. So I had to be the first one in my family to get that BA. I had to be the first one to do everything. So I was really diligent about coming to class and doing the work, and the teachers were just so helpful. And then things changed in my life, and I'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later on.
Other comments on changes you've seen?
Oh, yes. This is incredible. Coming back now as a part-time instructor, it's like, okay, look at this college CU. You have nothing compared to what we've got because we've got a beautiful facility. And I actually graduated in 2010 from Metro State. You know what? They need to catch up with Front Range because Front Range has smart boards in their classrooms. They have great tables. They have a great environment for the students. They have great places for kids to hang out. And I just noticed that they're putting a lot of patios along the yards. So this is such an incredible difference from a barrack and an industrial part of town that really, when you stop to think about it, it was kind of a little bit shady there. We wouldn't go there today, but today we have this beautiful building. We have wonderful parking lots. So if you ever complain about parking at Front Range being too crowded, just think about parking along that busy street and having to walk up to those barracks. We've got it made here. This is a beautiful campus. It's modern, and they're constantly improving it. So I'm proud to say that Front Range is really a stellar community college.
Mark, how long were you here at this campus, and do you have any comments coming back today? Or
Well, like Phyllis, I think I held 11 different jobs too. I first started as assistant director of the records office, and international student advisor. And at that time, this was a microcosm of the world. I had students from Saudi Arabia, Iran, the Emirates, Latin America, and the rest. And it was the best experience you could ever have. And I stayed in contact with a lot of them, and I also saw a lot of turmoil in terms of what happened in those countries, particularly Iran. And you don't realize sometimes the educational system we have and the strengths that we have in that. The students I had from Iran were primarily the upper class. Some of them were actually in the Shah's army or diplomats or the rest, but the experience was really positive with that. And that was at a time that the Middle Eastern countries were sending all their oil monies to educate their students here in the States. So it was very interesting to be involved in the ESL programs and that. And reflecting back on your comments about the old campus, I remember the big social burning issue the student government had at that time is that private parking lot across the street raised the fee from $25 to $30, or excuse me, 30 cents. And that initiated a boycott and, so many things I cannot tell you. But you got to remember that's the age of activism. And in part of that, the student government had rented this van as a shuttle to run students up and down the street, and I volunteered to drive that, which it was a VW van. And I did, and I got down at the end of my run to bring people back, and I couldn't get in reverse. I did not know that you had to press the gear shift down to do that. So I'm looking in the manual for how to do that, and I open up, and there's a big bag of pot in there. All I could think of is Community College of Denver administrator arrested as drug runner. And I went back and I told the students in the student government, you better get that stuff out of there or I'm not driving anymore. So, that was kind of the experience. But the community there was very involved and a good portion of students of color. And it was a great experience with that. And there was great concern when we moved that we would lose those constituencies as we moved here. But, that, like any college, you evolve with the times and the rest. I then spent 5 years of my career as the director of the Boulder Center, and from going to a night school to helping open the center on Spine Avenue or Road out on the diagonal there. That really launched us ahead. And we always had issues with pedigree, CU at times. But that changed vastly because I remember I used to keep in a little booklet what courses would transfer to all the schools. When I left, there were transfer articulation agreements. Our pedigree is the best.
That's great. That's great. So I did hear a few mumblings about how things come full circle. So maybe you were ahead of the game in with our greenhouse and some horticulture program changes that we could do.
Yes.
And then we'll remember that we are being recorded.
That better be. Do I need counsel?
I just got to keep my job. You're good. Phyllis, let's move into the 90s just briefly, and then we'll hop back and forth. And if you could comment, on the campus or even on CTE, so Career Tech Ed, and some of the changes you've seen in your role.
When I first started at Larimer County Voc Tech, the biggest programs were the agriculture program, and we had a farm. We had 100 acres at the time, and eventually the school districts needed a new site for an elementary school, so they commandeered 50 plus of the acres, which really constrained the campus and limited the growth that we could have on that site. But agriculture, nursing, and electronics were the biggest programs. We couldn't offer a degree as an area vocational school. And there was pressure from business and industry, especially in electronics and nursing, to get that associate degree. So on my very first day, one of the topics at the administrative meeting was to begin investigating strategies to become a community college. And we investigated lots of options. The first one was to be another campus of Ames. The second one was to start our own community college. And then eventually we just became a part of Front Range Community College. My first job was director of the evening programs, and it was adult ed. It was not the same classes that you had in the daytime. And if you took the same subject matter at night, you could not apply it to a daytime program. So one of my first challenges was to make the evening offerings a part of the college so that the classes would apply both ways. And it became so popular that the post-secondary side was growing faster than the secondary side, and the school districts were then somewhat receptive to spinning us off because they were having to put too much money into the adult education, the post-secondary side. So that's just a little bit about what made those changes happen.
Great.
My first day at Front Range was Halloween. And I met everybody in costume. So the next day, I couldn't remember who they were except that you were the scarecrow and you were. The programs have changed a lot. And one of the things that I did at Front Range was start new programs and work with business and industry committees to identify the skills that their future workers would need. I think I started 25 new programs while we were here. And it was everything from culinary arts to vet tech to we expanded machining. We did a lot of different computer programs, and one of the most profitable programs we did was one that IBM asked us to do. They came to us because CSU turned them down, and they wanted us to train folks to work with the Cisco networking systems. So I had our IT folks come in, and we figured out how we could offer the program on the weekends, Friday night and Saturdays, and the students could complete the program in a semester. And they were guaranteed job interviews with IBM and eventually Hewlett-Packard and several other companies. And after 13 weeks of training, they were making an average of $45,000. In the first year, we offered it only at Larimer, and it made $1.2 million, that program. The next year, we expanded it to Westminster and Longmont also, and it made $3.4 million. But that's just an example of how, if you listen to what business and industry needs, and you use your creativity and your resources, you can start new programs. On the technological side, I can't explain it very well, but the Cisco was a new operating system. So to do that in our labs, we had to have a removable drive that we would pull out and replace it with the ones that the students were going to use to reprogram the computers. And then at the end of the weekend, they would put the drive back in, and it was ready to offer all of our other classes.
And now we probably have clouds and virtual machines, but it's a good reminder. But the intent, I think what you're hearing too, is the intent is always about how do we stay responsive to what our students need so that they walk into the community from our highly respected institution and get those jobs that launch you in your future.
And when I started at Front Range, we didn't even have computers.
Head the barracks, right.
We used shorthand.
You might have to define that for the audience, but so Tom, you were president here for 14 years, so
Just
go with that.
a thought as I hear Phyllis and Mark commenting on our history. What you just witnessed is a great example of people who were at the front end of these institutions back in the late 60s, and you hear the word flexibility. You got to be flexible. They took on many different assignments at request and did the job and did the right thing for the students. And it just took that kind of personal quality to be able to be multi-talented, very flexible, very sincere, very supportive. And you do it for the right reasons. You do it for the institution, you do it for the students, and you know what's out there. And it's a great feeling to know that when you're working with people like this and faculty and others, that that's what these colleges are all about. And you feel it. And you feel it from day one when you walk in. And that continues with you. And so that's just a great example of, I think, of the personnel that are at Front Range Community College. My role was obviously quite different. I had to find money. I had to find my way through the political process. We had 21 legislators in our district. I had to work with all of them. I met them. I spent time with them. Sherry can tell you the number of meetings I would go to for breakfast or lunch or 24/7 on weekends to deal with a way to convince them that we needed money for capital construction. We needed money for our general operating budget. That was part of my role. The other part of it is when I first came here, several communities, I won't name them, reached out and said, we need to see more of you, not me. We need to see more of the college. Would you facilitate that? I said, well, that's what it's all about. And so we did. And that started a marriage in many ways with communities. In Westminster, it started out as a cup of coffee with some breakfast. Later on, we had a brainstorm. This is what you have today. And we did a joint use plan with legislative money and City of Westminster to do a joint use library. Unheard of in those days. But I knew I wasn't going to get all that money from the legislature. It was just not happening. So we tried to partner the best way we could to do that. And we have other examples like that at Fort Collins. We did the same thing there. In Fort Collins, we had a situation there with 3 school districts where they still owned the land. So we had to work with the 3 school districts to accommodate K through 12 training in addition to community college. And the governance model was a little unwieldy at times, but you have to work together to make this thing happen. I will say that the school districts were very instrumental up there in making this thing happen. They came forward with the land, a way to get it there. And then we had people in the community, I know especially in Fort Collins, the mayor and people who led the way to try to look at a community-involved process to develop a 2-year college. And I remember a man by the name of Jose Trujillo. Jose was the person there who facilitated a lot of workshops and not serving, but a selfless person. He just enjoyed doing that for the community. And so you had people like that in various communities. Same way in Longmont when we developed that site. And we moved in 2 or 3 different locations till we found the right spot. You may recall some of those. I know that's not easy. It's not easy on the students and not easy on the faculty, but we had to get the right combination of land and contracts and all that stuff to take place. We did the same thing with Boulder and the Voctech Center there. We tried that concept, but somehow that went south later on. The school board just didn't want to continue with that type of activity, and so they went their own way. So we had to move and get into a different location in Boulder, and then it IE became the Boulder-Longmont kind of connection in Longmont. That's kind of how that came about. A lot of these ideas, by the way, came through various people that wanted to make things happen. My goal at the time when I came here was I knew it was going to be growth. I knew what potential was out there. It's just how do you make it happen? And it was not easy to pull people together because everybody had their own center of how they wanted to do things. But we made things happen. Not everybody was happy all the time. That doesn't work that way. But at least we got things off the ground. And so I think, at least for my part, for the time that I was here, I can look back at this and say, well, we set that in motion. We set the groundwork programmatically, structurally, and organizationally, money, all that, and so then you just go from there. And so that was the fun part of it. But I tell you, the end result for me was is when I could hand out a diploma to a student and then have them come back and appreciate that. So I still see students today, or I still have students who write. Somehow we connected, and here I was in that office, but I tried to make it a point of getting to know as many students as I could during the time that I was here.
Thank you. I love hearing that at all levels, and the president is the highest level. It is that connection to students, and sometimes when you're in those offices, you don't see them as much as possible. So thanks for that reminder. So I have a question I'll throw out and to see who steps forward. And when you think about your time here, who are the people who inspired you or motivated you in your jobs, or perhaps in, as Tom said, in remaining flexible, and whether you were driving the VW bus or learning about Cisco systems, right? All of those things that maybe weren't part of your background. Who inspired you? Who motivated you throughout your time with Front Range?
Jack Stoddard was one at the first. He was the director of the area vocational school when I came. And he had never hired a female administrator. And he was very nervous about bringing...
What year is that?
That was 81.
Okay.
And he was very nervous about my coming on. In fact, I was temporary to begin with, to see if it would work out.
You were the backbone. Seriously.
Yeah.
She started a lot of programs and was the mainstay for a lot of those things that went forward. And I heard that when I came here. Go
Thanks.
ahead.
Sue Vordenberg. She made me look at things in different ways. And even though things were going well, she convinced you that you could always do it better. That's students. A Native American student who helped me understand the culture and just created an appreciation for the Native American culture.
Well, I'm pretty new coming back as a faculty member, and I'd have to say that the person who really inspired me to actually come back as an instructor was the center director for the Brighton Center, Dori Benavides. She was always looking for innovative ways to change Front Range Community College. And Brighton is a really innovative center to begin with because it's in the former Platte Valley Medical Center. And Front Range has a beautiful center out there. If you've never been there, I would encourage you to go out and just check it out. The City of Brighton, Brighton Urban Renewal Authority, Front Range Community College, and Platte Valley Medical Center, they all work together to get grants to put that center together. And so Dori, it was like her pride and joy. And I worked really closely with her because at that time I was working for Brighton Economic Development, and I was the director of the Brighton Center for Small Business Development Center. And so when she first came in, I introduced her to people in Brighton, and she said, "Teri, I want to help you too. I want to help you grow." And she did just that. She was always pushing and saying, what if we did this, or what if we did that? She always came up with ideas, and the really amazing thing is that I had the same kind of ideas, and so we would collaborate together to create programs that really enhanced the Brighton Center. And when she said, I'm going to start these certificate programs and hybrid classes in Brighton, and I want you to come and teach. And I'm like, well, I don't think that's possible. But she said, oh no, I found a way that we could do that. So Dori was really good about always finding the way to do something. So I did apply for a CTE license, and I got into career and technical education because of my business background, my background in education, my background in curriculum development with Head Start and with community development programs, my background in training, and my background in economic development. So putting all that together, I was able to get a really great opportunity. So she didn't just inspire me to keep on growing after I thought that I was all done. When I finally got that BA in 2010, I thought, okay, this is it, I've arrived. But she said, no, you're just starting. And so I did apply for that. I did get the position right away. And she didn't just give people the opportunity to look deeper, to pursue a deeper, a longer journey, to motivate yourself and to inspire people as you went along, to be an inspiration to other people, to share your dreams with other people and to help them realize their dreams. She gave you wings to fly, and that's what she's going to be remembered as a person who gave people wings to fly, not just motivate them, not just inspire them, but to become all that you can become.
Okay, who's going to follow that?
Well, you look at leader and who should you follow, and you look at people that are recognized, but outside of your field, I look at my wife. She was there when I had to deal with some tough stuff, tough calls, things that you don't see in the academic scene. That's pro forma. When you get right down to it, and you got to deal with issues of the future, planning, and all that stuff, and you get into some personnel issues that are not very easy. So you have to have some kind of a way to balance that out. She, a former nursing faculty at community college, that's where I met her. And when I was president at Lynn Benton in Oregon, then taught at the Health Sciences Center in Family Medicine. So I had a good way to kind of interact with me and keep me solid and keep you focused so that you don't lose that sense of balance when you're in a job that requires all kinds of things that happen simultaneously. So that's personal, but it does mean a lot because you have to have some of that if you're going to do these kind of jobs in a way that otherwise you're without. And then you have to sit around and say, how do you deal with this? And I will share with you, I've met a lot of community college presidents in my history, and many have just had a tough time dealing with how to balance their life with their work, and it's tough. And but I didn't have that problem because it was a way to enjoy life outside of the job. When you were doing that, you had a good sense of balance with your family and your children, and you worked within the institution to make things happen, and it was fun.
That's kind of emotional. I lost 3 of my staff members to cancer, and I think that forever changed me. And I was thankful for them, and still am. Thank you.
I think we're lucky working in education because the mission is very personal. It really is. The people who sign on for these jobs at all the levels really believe in it, and it hits in the heart, and sometimes it's good to be reminded of that. So I really appreciate your vulnerability in answering these, from professional and to the people who really inspire. And I think it's good words to say in any job. We need to surround ourselves with that kind of support. Look for it and lean on it. So there's got to be some good stories, whether it's about, the plaid pants of the 70s or the big hair of the 80s or something. So think back. Give us a story about your time here at Front Range.
I used to service the Rocky Flats munitions plant. I think that's an exhibit about it over there, actually. And it was a high-security nuclear facility, and it was like, to get in that place, you needed your grandmother's maiden name, or it was just unbelievable. So I would go out, register students, and sell books and collect the tuition and do whatever is necessary there. And of course, it's high security. The thing that got me the most was I had to wear this badge, escort required, and even to the washroom. And I almost had the security, do you have to go in there with me, or can I be on my own for that? But that's what amazed me, was that this college registrar is a threat to national security. So, anyway, that was an interesting experience there.
What was the answer? Did they have to go in with you or not?
They didn't. They left me at the doorway. So, but I never will forget having to wear that large badge.
Stories? Any other stories?
I have a fun student story. We were having a meeting on campus, and someone from Phi Theta Kappa stood up and talked about a project that they wanted to do in Nepal. And they needed some money to help with the project. And I got to thinking, I'm in Rotary. If they could raise some money, Rotary could match it, and then the district could match it again, so we could triple their money. So I went and I talked to them, and they thought that was a great idea. So we worked together and raised $4,000 to help a primary school in Nepal that served deaf students. And the first project was building girls' restrooms. And they wanted to do that because the girls wouldn't come to school when they were having their periods. And so they documented attendance the year before the bathrooms were there and showed how the attendance improved. And then the next year, they wanted to do it again. So the next year, we raised $11,000, and they built retaining walls around the school. And Emily Thomas, who was the president of Phi Theta Kappa at the time, our Rotary Club actually sent her to the school to take toys and art supplies and athletic balls and things to the students. And so Emily just has a very special spot in my heart, and it was fun to make that happen, help make that happen.
So the reach goes beyond our service area, beyond the state. So nice story. Thank you.
Well, I said that we worked for Head Start, so the staff from the Adams County Head Start that worked together, and we all came to school together, almost like a cohort. And we had a lot of really low-income families that we worked with. So we started saying, okay, if we're going to be teachers, then we need to start thinking about ways that we can help our families. So together, we organized that we could get some coats for the low-income kids who came to school without any coats because they'd come to school with just a sweater or a sweatshirt. And so we did some fundraising, and we got the parents involved, and we worked with Kmart in Brighton, which unfortunately is no longer there. But Kmart actually gave vouchers. Instead of actually going out and buying coats for the kids, we got them to do vouchers so the parents could take the vouchers into Kmart and they could get their kids really nice coats. And that was really something that, if we hadn't been coming to Front Range and see what teachers can do, then we probably would have just gone back and done our job and just lived our own life. But because of the family environment at Front Range Community College, then we were willing to go out and do other things for parents. And I actually had 5 parents in Head Start who came to Front Range Community College too, and they became teachers. And I had one high school student who took on one child who was really severely he had a really severe brain injury when he was about 2 years old. So she took him on a one-on-one, and she became a special needs instructor with District 14. So we were able to really influence a lot of people, not just in college, not just in our work area, but in whole communities, because it was Adams County Head Start, and they had Head Start programs in all of the cities that are in Adams County. So that was a really great experience and really fulfilling.
I could sit here with many stories, but I think the ones that really stick out in my mind are those that I would hear from students about a faculty member or somebody in admissions or somebody in the facilities as in terms of what it meant to be working with them and what it meant to be learning from that faculty member in the classroom. And so I heard that often again. And then, in addition to that, when you had a parent come up and say the same thing, that your college saved my life, your college helped my kid get through school. Students who were lost, couldn't find their way, had a very difficult time into how do I get into a pathway toward being educated or onto a baccalaureate, whatever it is. These kinds of stories last, and that's what this college is all about. So I hope it stays that way and continues to be the way for people to explore and gain self-confidence to move ahead. And I'm sure it does. It's one example I remember of a student that I worked with, my wife and I personally, at a different place, but a good example, it could happen here. A young man from Mexico had lost one leg, had a tough time getting around, was able to get him some help to get a prosthesis. Couldn't speak very good English. Worked with him, and he went on, once he moved through the associate program, went on, became an electrical engineer, and writes back and says, you made a difference in my life. So that's what these stories are all about. You'll never know when that is going to come back around 10 years from now or 3 months from now or whatever. So the focus there is if you're doing the right thing as an organization, the students will succeed. You just got to create a way for them to make that happen.
So we are built on pretty solid foundation, programmatically, and even with physical locations. So, Mark, I'd like to hear from you. I know you were very instrumental in launching our Boulder County campus. And if I can take you back a little bit, tell us about some of the challenges and the successes of that expansion.
Sure. They had to practically drag me screaming and hollering to take that job, but because I was very comfortable as director of admissions, and you become very comfortable with some of your positions through life and everything else, and I was asked to fill a temporary vacancy there while Tanya Bassett was gone. So and we had our operation in Boulder was strictly at night through a variety of places, the Catholic High School and Boulder High and a number of places. And finally, the college leased a spot on Wilderness Place off Foothills Parkway. And we thought we were real uptown to be in Boulder and have our own space rather than be in a church basement. But it just was amazing how they had done research. The community colleges thrive in university towns. University is not the only game in town. But I remember being out there, for example, you always had to maintain good relationships with neighbors. I was out directing traffic the first day of class to keep the neighbors happy because our students were parking anywhere and everywhere. And that always became a process of, we offering just basic lecture type courses to the point of evolving where we needed to do lab science. And let me tell you, if you want an experience, we moved from Wilderness Place to Spine Road, a college. And it was interesting. My staff member and I'll never forget how the freight system works in the United States. The semi pulls up with college furniture the day before classes practically. And the driver gets out and I said, well, how soon can you get this unloaded? He said, I don't unload it. You'll need to unload it. So my staff member, Peggy Bailey, rest in peace, and I unloaded a whole semi in I don't know how long to get the classes and classrooms ready. So that opened the Spine Road campus. And you just assumed a whole new identity. And you also became a jack of all works. You did financial aid, you did all of those things, and you just had to improvise a lot of things, including unplugging toilets and things along that line, and electrical connections that didn't work in a classroom or something like that. But that ended up for me, not to toot my own horn, but I think I could run a college, with all respect to a college president. But had a wonderful experience with that, with students, with staff, but it also rose my level as an administrator to a whole different level that I would never have experienced. I never had supervised faculty before, and you ended up being faculty, dean of the faculty, dean of students, and all of those things, but it was a great mix, and I thrived there. I really enjoyed my time there, and but it came back. I retired from Westminster here, and but those skills, the first day I'll never forget, one of the janitorial staff had this terrible accident, fell through this glass atrium, and I thought, oh my gosh, the first day on the job, that's what I had to confront with. But in the end, it was the best experience, and I felt really proud that we were able to hire full-time faculty members at that site. And I also, you asked people who influence you, the adjunct faculty who are so committed to delivering services. I can't say enough about them. And they certainly didn't come for the money, particularly in the technical areas. I just had wonderful people who taught for me, and I'll never forget that.
I remember that decision when we talked about who would be the person to put it together. There was no other choice. He had all the different skills, and it was just a commitment to make it happen. And Mark, he would not even go home sometimes, right?
It was very late some nights, yes.
And,
I thought the first
you'd
day
hear
of
about-
class would be sunrise.
You'd hear about him catching a bus to get back to downtown. It was just, it was phenomenal. That's the kind of person he is.
And that's one thing about, even to this site, RTD bus service I was really helpful in getting them to come here. I'll never forget they couldn't get the bus around that circle and hung up and
They got
broke
hung up,
down.
that's
It was a
right.
very interesting day there too, so.
I think what's amazing, first, two things I noticed. Mark said his staff member. It wasn't plural. We run
Yes.
really lean and mean here. And the other thing I appreciate that Tom recognized is it's that flexibility and those skill sets. And I hope we teach some of that by experience in our classrooms, but life teaches us a whole lot as well. But stick your head out stick your neck out. If you don't get RTD bus service to a campus, we can't get students into a classroom who are ready to learn. If we can't get, our financial aid all done up nicely and support students through that, you can't sit in a classroom and be ready to learn. And so it's a little bit like getting a glimpse behind the curtain and seeing how sausage is made. And I mix all of my metaphors all the time. But there's a lot happening so that students are sitting in the classroom ready to learn. And we are really built on some solid foundations. So for the last few minutes, are there any questions from the gallery that you would like to ask this panel? Yes.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Many years ago, when Jesus was a little boy, I was a principal at Skyview High School up here. And I was looking for something for my students to do, because they get to be sophomores and they're pretty much done with all their graduation requirements. And so I don't remember who I met with. Anyway, I got assigned, I think Tom assigned Ron Young and a guy named Ben something, a Hispanic guy out of admissions maybe?
Ben Romero.
Ben Romero.
Yeah.
To work with me, and we started this program.
Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We started this program where I would send kids to Front Range to take classes.
Yeah.
And it worked really, really well. So well, in fact, that one day I get a phone call from Governor Romer, and he invites me and Ron to come up and give him a description of the project. And so we did, and at the end of as we finished the story, he said, "Fellas, I want you to know this no longer belongs to you. I'm presenting to the legislature in January," he said, "and we're going to spread this all throughout the state of Colorado." So today, thank you, Tom, anyway. So today, you have concurrent enrollment throughout the state of Colorado because it started at Front Range.
That concept, by the way, was one that I used in Seattle. A high school to college degree at the high school for urban students that were really having problems. And guess what? They took it over there too. Because once they get started and these students get connected, well, then the rest is history. It's the right thing to do. Thank you, by the way.
No, thank you.
So I have a question. Is there anything you felt like you left undone? One more thing you wish you would have accomplished at Front Range?
I'm retired, so I'm enjoying the fruits of the experience like this and other things. But I did stay with it after I retired. I spent 8 years working with Achieving the Dream colleges. I coached presidents, young presidents, to keep themselves from getting into hot water, basically how to survive. And then I started doing private consulting work with a firm, and I still do that, but I don't do a lot of that anymore. I fly fish a lot, and I'm trying to learn flamenco guitar. I'm in the Mecca for that kind of energy in Santa Fe. And so my focus now is music and history and the outdoors. And I have another arena that I am very involved in, and that's the environmental issues of this country. I chaired the National Wildlife Federation board for a number of years, the big organization. And that came about as a result of some of my writing about what colleges could do in this and whole environmental scope of things. And so I'm still involved in that. And it's kind of brutal right now, given what's going on, to see what's now starting to go downhill for all those years that you tried to build. And so I have another mission, and that's kind of where it is. I think I was telling John, I've spent my time on 40 plus years in higher ed and made my contribution. I'll follow what I can there, but I'm shifting the arena in other areas of life that matter.
Yes, please, Mark.
I was very fortunate that I survived a major heart attack 6 years ago that probably kills most people. The nurses that got me through that at St. Joseph's, where you can guess where they graduated from. And I will never forget that this school on the State Board of Nursing, and it's been a while, I understand, scored higher than anybody else in the state. And that's something really to be proud of. And there's no doubt in my mind in that hospital bed the skills they had. So thank you.
Yeah, Teri.
I just want to say that if you have a dream, never give up on it. Life has a big if in the middle of it, but on the side, there's life experiences. So use the things that come against you as you're following your dream and you're going on your journey of life to learn as much as you can. And always hang on to those dreams. And if you've given up on those dreams, then reconnect with them, because you can achieve whatever you believe. And here at the college, you'll find people who will help you to achieve those dreams. So never give up on yourself and never think that you're not capable of doing something, because we are a wondrous creation. We can be whoever we want to be. And along the way, just inspire somebody else. Take up the wings and just help them to fly too.
Thanks for letting me be a part of the panel today. It was really fun.
Thank you.
You know, and I want to express my sincere gratitude for you being here, but beyond that, for really the foundation and the work you have done or you continue to do on behalf of this institution, our community, and I really mean that, because I love that we heard from the seeds of concurrent enrollment, the beginnings of strong nursing programs, all of that, they start small. And we have to build upon that work. So thank you for providing such an excellent foundation and then sharing with us your wisdom and your thoughts and your passion again today. Please join me in thanking this group.
And we do have a little thank you for each of our guests from the foundation, the Front Range Community College Foundation, which raises money for scholarships for students. So thank you to the foundation for lunch and for these, and thank you again to all of you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.